Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is another from here to there reaction. I did a reaction to them recently, and this one is the top 10 creepiest small towns in America. This isn't going to be for everyone, and I know that, but I had a lot of suggestions for this recently, and I didn't even know this was going to be a sort of video out there before. Like, what I've been doing for the US recently, or all my videos so far, have really been like sort of positive, interesting, but positive, like things that make the US just look like wow. And I had a lot of suggestions in the past, and maybe this isn't the best video for that, but a lot of suggestions to sort of look at the, not necessarily the negative things, but just sort of the things that aren't always just like how like the landscape looks and all like the positive things about cities and all these different things. And although this may not actually be a negative thing, it may just be a bit of a weird video, like just a bit of a meh kind of video. Maybe he's just sort of using this to try and get clickbait, and to be fair, it's worked because it's his most viewed video. But I mean, I don't know, I'm just here to look at the video, right? I'm not here to like really understand what this video is about before I get into it, but I had it suggested a lot and I thought it could be a fun one. Again, I know this isn't going to be for everyone, but hey, with the channel I'm reacting to a lot of different things, and I'm definitely excited to check this one out basically. But let's just get into this one. Let's see what this is about. Quick shout out to my Instagram and my Twitter, links in the description for those. Same for my second channel, we're so close to 15k. Actually, when I'm saying this, we probably have hit 15k, so that's crazy. So I want to thank you all for that. But let's get into this and let's just see what this is about.
Warning!
Oh my god, that is loud.
PSA, stay
Why is it so loud?
away from these small towns at all costs.
We've all been to that one rundown town where the vibe just seemed off. The people are strange, and there's this weird feeling in the air. There are a lot.
This is about to offend some people. If you're from one of these towns, watch the whole video, and if you're from one of these towns, let me know, and let me know if what he's saying is absolute lies, it's just full of lies, or if there's actually some meaning behind what he's going to say here.
Lot of creepy towns in America, especially once you get into the more rural areas. But most don't compare to these. You really should avoid going to any of these places unless you absolutely have to. Some have a dark history and are reportedly haunted by ghosts if you believe in that stuff. And if you don't, well, the paranormal honestly would seem like pleasant company compared to the residents of some of these towns. From abandoned buildings to cults and drugs to gruesome murders, darkness...
Cults? This is some Far Cry type stuff right now. Far Cry? You guys, that Far Cry one that I played that was like in the US, and it was like to do with cults. Is there actual cults in the US then? Like, obviously, well, there obviously is, but like, a cult is like a group of people that believe something. Like, what is a cult fully? Do they have a certain belief? A system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. A person or a thing that is popular or fashionable among a... That's not long. A cult can probably be defined. How many cults? How many cults are there in America? There's 1,000 in the UK, so I can only imagine how many there are in the US. There's probably like tens of thousands, to be honest, because the size difference. That's crazy.
and oddities loom throughout their streets. The following places really should be avoided at all costs, but if you're a crazy adventurer wanting to ignore my warnings, or just interested in seeing how strange America can be, then be sure to listen to my top 10 creepiest towns in the United States. Number 10, Whittier, Alaska. How would you feel if your entire city lived, worked, and spent their free time in the same building? What if they never left?
Oh my god, what? So this whole town is just like one sort of living quarter for everyone. Are you... Okay, that is weird.
That's life for the 208 residents living in the small port town of Whittier, Alaska. The only way you can escape or enter, if you dare, is by boat or through a single, highly regulated one-lane tunnel. It closes often and unexpectedly. When it is open, you're only allowed to enter every half hour. Fortunately, you don't need to go through the inconvenience of leaving your building since...
Creepy isn't the right word though, this is just a bit strange, but it's interesting at the same time, definitely not creepy.
This single 14-story structure, Begitch Towers, has everything a town could need, from a grocery store to a post office to apartments you can call home. All in the same building. You really do never need to leave. And most people don't during the winter. Just imagine the isolation.
I mean, it's efficient, but that is so strange. But again, maybe in a place like Alaska, you need stuff like that for like more efficiency of certain
even
things.
more unsettling is...
But why do they live there? Is it because they're like... Is it like... Because like, I don't even know why they'd be living there. I don't actually know why. Wait, what's it called again? 158. Whittier, Alaska. It's just a port town, didn't you say? Oh, Whittier, not Whittier. Oh, there we go. The sleepy town on the west side of Prince William Sound, tucked between picturesque ones. A formerly armed barracks resembling as an aging hotel where most of the town's to. That's so strange. That is so strange. I'll definitely be down to learn more about that town for sure.
Is that
so
although the
different.
people have lived this way for generations, this is actually a new building. But the old building they all used to live in is still there too. On a hill, dilapidated, crumbling, and fenced off. Never to be entered. Outside of Begitch Towers, the town just seems barren, abandoned, and creepy. While cruise ships do come through here in the summer, very few visitors make the trek during the winter, when the town
Cruise
stays
ships.
dark for over 18 hours a day, making Whittier feel incredibly lonely and isolated.
That is strange.
Number 9.
But to be fair, the one sort of positive of that is so many people are living together. Maybe the loneliness is gone because you can actually see each other. You don't have to like go outside and then see each other. You can just sort of be in the same sort of presence. But that is a strange one for sure. I wouldn't say it's creepy.
As in West Virginia.
Interesting.
Upon arrival, it isn't hard to see why the town's most infamous citizen, the creepy humanoid moth-like figure known as Mothman, called Point Pleasant home. No one knows who or what he was, but his supposed flights over the streets during the 1960s are only a recent occurrence in a town deeply rooted in darkness. It all began on the 10th of October, 1774. The Shawnee tribe bravely fought the new American settlers for the land that they both called home. The Americans barely managed to overcome the tactics of the Shawnee chief Cornstalk. Eventually, Cornstalk, his son, and close friends came to negotiate with the Americans in an effort to avoid future battles. But the Americans captured and executed them all. Just before he died, Cornstalk called upon the Great Spirit to curse the land for 200 years as vengeance for the injustice done to him and his people. Whether you believe in curses or not, 2 devastating floods ruined the town, followed by a destructive fire. Later, an airplane carrying the Marshall University football team and their coach tragically crashed here as well, killing all 75 people on board. In 1967, the Silver Bridge, which connected the town to Ohio, collapsed, killing 46. Then, in 1978,
This is quite a creepy town then. I'm not gonna lie. That last one was just different. This one is messed up for reasons that it's just
a freight train
unfortunate.
derailed and spilled toxic chemicals into the city's water supply. Not to mention the apparent Men in Black and UFO activity in the area. The town is even cursed by a name it could never live up to. If you visit Point Pleasant today, you'll definitely feel something strange in the air. And it's not just Mothman. The real mystery is, why do people keep living here?
Well, I mean, to be fair, people probably can't move out. That's for another issue, isn't it? Some people are probably just stuck in the towns because they can't move. But if they have the option to move, obviously, it is kind of interesting as to why they would choose to live there. But again, probably the majority of the people there don't have that.
Number 8, Villisca,
Sad,
Iowa.
but-
On the surface, Villisca looks like your normal, quiet, small Midwest town. But that only makes everything that I'm about to tell you even creepier. Over 100 years ago, the Villisca Axe murders of 1912 traumatized the town, which hasn't recovered since. The murders took place between the evening of June 10th and early morning June 11th, 1912, when 8 people were discovered dead at Josiah and Sarah Moore's house. The 6 members of the Moore family and their 2 house guests were found bludgeoned. Even the 4 children had severe head wounds from an axe. Although a lengthy investigation yielded several suspects, one of whom was tried twice, the crime remains unsolved. An air of uneasiness envelops the town today, perhaps because its residents never quite felt safe, knowing a ruthless murderer freely roamed their streets. Today the town is run down, and although tourists can spend the night in the Moore house, I don't know why anyone would want to. One traveler who passed through here recounts, "It did feel eerie and I felt unwelcome. Even the flies were more annoying there. Perhaps that's why no civilization settled nearby. Even though there are 1,200 people currently living in the town, the nearest restaurant or grocery store other than their gas station is 15 miles away.
What? See, that's crazy to me. I mean, that's not even the point of well, that's not the reason why this town's there. But a grocery store being 20 minutes away. Are you mad? How is that for a population that's not even that small? That is kind of crazy to me. Like, how there's a grocery store so far away from them. But
Number 7.
maybe there's like in the US. Do you have like sort of like corner shops, like small? We call them corner shops in the UK, right? Are there small shops? Small corner shop. It's just like small sort of convenience stores. Oh, you do. I think, like you sort of just have them in the middle of like just where like houses are. Like it's not like where loads of shops are. It's like you'll have loads of houses, like an estate, and then you'll have like a corner shop there, and a corner shop like 2 minutes down the road, and all these different things. Where you just get like the easiest stuff, or we have like small versions of our big shops. So like with like Target, do you have like sort of small Targets? So you have the big Targets, like where you get everything, but then you have a sort of like small Targets or the small Walmarts, just sort of around, just so you can get the sort of the essentials. Or do you only have the big stores of them? Because in the UK, if you've heard of places like Tesco and Asda and all that kind of stuff, not Asda, but with Tesco and Sainsbury's, which is our sort of version of those, I guess you could say, of Target and Walmart, we'll have like the big shops where you can get everything, and then the small ones where you can just sort of go to them, get the essentials, which there are usually a lot closer. There's usually a lot more of them. I don't know if you don't have if that doesn't make sense, then that's my bad. But I'm interested in knowing that whether you do have that kind of stuff in the US.
Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia has been on fire for decades. Yes, you heard me right. On fire. The blaze began in 1962 with a trash fire in a strip mine beneath the town. That unassuming little flame ignited an eternal hellish blaze that burns underground to this day. And each year, it grows by 75 feet in every direction. The town has been barricaded from the outside to prevent people from driving onto the collapsing roads, which are a danger even on foot. Sinkholes constantly and randomly appear, eager to swallow unsuspecting victims. And where there aren't sinkholes, there are random spurts of smoke that can kill you upon inhaling the fumes. This one might sound like something out of a video game or horror movie, and well, that's because it is. The Silent Hill franchise is based on this town, and it's a tragic story. The population of once 3,000 residents has now decreased to just 10 according to the last US census. But nobody knows if those 10 people still live in the death trap today. Of the 400 to 500 buildings that once stood in this flourishing town, only 5 remain. And I honestly don't know why anyone would want to still live here. I mean, just look at the place.
But I mean, at the end of the day, again, if you can't move, you can't move. But that is crazy. It's still on fire. That's wild.
Number 6. Broadhead, Wisconsin. Broadhead is a town haunted by many dark and twisted tales. The first known haunting began after 2 men brutally murdered a helpless woman whose ghost supposedly now roams the bridge that she died on. And that isn't the only tragedy that darkens the city. A fire claimed the life of a little girl who apparently now haunts the building she burned to death in. As if that isn't bad enough, Broadhead residents have recounted numerous haunting encounters with various ghosts all over the town. Perhaps because of another tragedy that happened at what is now called Hell's Playground, where children were murdered by a mentally ill man. Many reports of eeriness and even the faint sound of children chanting have been made. And even if you don't believe in ghosts, the town here still feels creepy, perhaps in part due to the old decaying architecture mixed with extremely religious people and lots of meth addiction. Broadhead just isn't a pleasant place to go through. Number 5. Cairo, Illinois. This once booming metropolis sits conveniently at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers. The amazing location brought it great economic success in the early 20th century, but eventually also became its demise. The Great Mississippi Flood of 1927 amassed tragedy here, and soon thereafter, many who once called it home eagerly left once rivers were no longer necessary for trade. It quickly became a ghost town. The population has been reduced to a mere 3,000 residents. Those who remain live amongst amongst the corroding ruins of what was once a great city, now overgrown with weeds. What's even worse is that it's a town ruined by its own hate and spite. Many white-owned businesses chose to go out of business instead of integrating during the civil rights movement. And even as recently as 1967, lynchings were held here. It's no wonder so many were quick to abandon the town. Crime runs rampant here, and just walking through the streets honestly feels like something out of The Walking Dead. Number 4. Antelope, Oregon. Oregon. Drive about 20 minutes outside of any city and you're guaranteed to find some total weirdness. I mean, this thing, the Temple of Oculus Anubis, is just outside of Portland. But out of all Oregon's cultish, creepy, and strange towns, Antelope is by far the creepiest. I mean, the people here live with actual deer on their porches. That's a major weird red flag. But maybe they just didn't get the
What's wrong with deers, man? I mean, it's different, but I mean, you could get a bit weird
memo,
with that, right?
since they don't have any modern technology or much communication with the outside world at all. Now, you're probably wondering the same thing I was. Why do these people live with deer? Well, in 1981, a mystic guru guy from India known as Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh bought 65,000 acres of land just 18 miles outside Antelope. And let me tell you, Oregon had no idea what was coming. It wasn't long before thousands of his followers had infiltrated the town of Antelope with their cultish ideals and eventually even voted to rename the town after Rajneesh. But taking over Antelope wasn't enough. Members of the cult began poisoning everything from restaurant salad bars to water supplies of nearby towns and even Portland and Salem. They also tried to murder several public officials. A global manhunt eventually collapsed the cultic commune, but needless to say, the town of Antelope never quite recovered. It's a ghost town, full of decaying, empty storefronts. Only 49 people remain here as of the last US Census, many resiliently still following their cultic ways, living with their deer. Number 3. Colorado City, Arizona. The misleading name isn't half as misleading as the beliefs of the fundamentalist Mormon.
Bro, places like this, I just can't imagine. Like in the UK, you would never get like a town like this or like a town like this at all. It's crazy, like how sort of sparsely and just randomly, like sort of scattered the houses are to me. Like it's just the scenery is so different. I could never expect to see like anything like this in person. It must be so sort of not necessarily strange, but just sort of like for someone who's like a tourist or whatever. This must just be so sort of like just new to see this kind of sort of scenery. And I know this isn't even like what we're getting into, but this just looks so much different to what I'm used to.
And cult
like,
gone rogue that lives here. It all started when Warren Jeffs, a leader of the church, convinced followers in this desert town that technology was satanic and everyone outside of their cult was possessed by Satan. So members of this cult needed to keep their bloodlines pure and only marry within the commune. Eventually, Jeffs was arrested for child molestation, but his ideals remain in the town. Though the rest of the world has moved on, Colorado City is stuck in the 1800s. From their traditional clothing to lack of technology and extreme hostility toward visitors and the entire outside world. Although the town is full of houses, they're mostly abandoned by the members of the cult who instead opt to live secretly in large compounds. The only obvious thing about their way of life is that young girls are forced into polyamorous relationships with much older men. But any other practices remain a mystery, and members of the cult make every effort to keep it that way.
Colorado City. Is this just like him saying this, or is this genuinely like known sort of thing? Colorado. Wait, City. I didn't realize places like this were in the US. So it's like different sort of. It's just. I can't even explain it. It's just different sort of like people who don't associate with the country, just living in the country kind of thing. Like, how do they get like food produced to them and stuff? Like, I mean, obviously they are still Americans, but it's just kind of like, how like it must just be a risky job to like even just send food to them and just like for the shops and stuff. Do they even have shops, like kind of stuff like that, or is it just like a majority of those people are like that, but a few of the people who live there are actually just sort of like the regular sort of American kind of thing? It's interesting.
Number
honestly.
2, Auburn, West Virginia. This is your typical spooky Appalachian small town, of which there are a lot, But Auburn, West Virginia just might be the creepiest. Located right off of State Route 74, the town of 90 residents consists of a
90.
single street lined with shack-like houses. And the road comes to an abrupt end once it reaches the woods. There's only one way in or out of the town. Why or how it got there is a mystery.
So
and the people that live
weird.
here are even more mysterious. A man on a motorcycle trip through Appalachia accounts how he stumbled across the town, which was completely silent and seemingly empty. Not a soul in sight. After coming to the dead end at the edge of town, he was forced to turn around, and as he drove back through the town, dozens of people had suddenly materialized on the porches of their shack-like houses. They stood motionless, silently watching him. He got out of there fast.
What the
Number one, Skidmore, Missouri. At first glance, you may see Skidmore as just another decaying small town that more and more people are leaving every year. But this town is a lot more depressing than that, especially when you know where it all started. Over 50 years ago, the notorious bully Ken McElroy blackmailed his way into a reign of terror over the town. He literally raped and pillaged the people there, forcing women as young as 12 into polygamous marriage. No one knew how to stand up to him, not even the police, until one day someone just shot him in front of the entire town. There was an intense legal investigation, but no one in the town would say a word. The authorities eventually gave up. Skidmore was finally peaceful. For a while, but in the year 2000, Wendy Gildenwater was stomped to death by her boyfriend. Some even say she was dragged on the streets hanging from the side of his car until she died. But that wasn't the last of the town's nightmarish troubles. On December 16th, 2004, a pregnant 23-year-old, Bobby Jo Stinnett, was discovered by her mother, who told 911 operators that she looked like her stomach exploded. Upon autopsy, they found that the infant was cut out of her womb by another lady who decided she wanted a baby. For a town of just 250 residents, there have been an abnormally large amount of gruesome murders and disappearances. That's why Skidmore truly is the creepiest town in America. But seriously, you probably don't want to visit any of the towns on this list. Besides Whittier, Alaska, which is actually quite nice in the summertime.
Bruh, okay, I was not expecting this at all. Some of these towns, they just like
Her boyfriend.
different like societies, countries within a country. It's like a small country within a country. Like they don't associate with each other or anything like that. I want to see the name of this city again though.
Leaving every year. But this town is a lot. It's just enough.
Skidmore, Missouri. So it is all this stuff. So these towns are kind of known for this. Let's just see more images of it. It does just look abandoned, doesn't it? It's crazy. It is crazy how like these sort of towns are like so like dangerous in a sense. Like I don't know what the most dangerous town in where I'm from. Most dangerous. Maybe I've heard of London. Okay, I mean that is a good point. Like the boroughs of London and stuff like that. But like, I wanted to know like some individual sort of towns on their own that are just sort of known in the UK, but I've never really heard of them any like really. Maybe I've just not looked into it properly. But the people in Whittier, oh I keep saying Whittier. I don't know how to say it. I'm gonna say Whittier. I'm going to say Whittier, Alaska were ready for the coronavirus pandemic before it happened. Honestly, they're far away. Why do people keep living here? Stairs and generational poverty, yeah. I mean, that is it at the end of the day. People are stuck just like people can't get out. Some people are literally just stuck in them sort of situations. I've been to Point Pleasant and it's more really quiet than creepy. The Mothman Museum is a hoot though. What's this guy's problem with deer? Sounds like a good travel bucket list for a vacation. Having deer confident enough to stay sitting on my porch sounds pretty amazing. Honestly, that sounds pretty cool. Why are they still living here? Well, some people do not have the resources and the ability to move out. That is true. That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, they're not able to move, are they? Like, some people just don't have the money to do that. And especially when you're living in a sort of town like that, the jobs there must be so sparse as well. Like, I wonder what jobs they have, or do they just not work? Like, how do they have money to do? I don't know. It's weird because a town like that, what sort of work would there be? Forcing women as young as 12, that's not what women do. More 3,000 says everyone that's never been to Maine. A mere 3,000, sorry. Every town is creepy, you just have to know where to look. Good content, but you're so overly hype, your voice, and sounds like way too much gainer. Yeah, he seems over the top, but that's how it is with YouTube at the end of the day. You've got to sort of exaggerate a little bit. But this was interesting, honestly. I definitely wasn't expecting this. Like, starting with the one that we started with, like, I just sort of thought it was going to be sort of weird sort of towns that, like, you don't really expect. Like, a town that's made from one building, but some of these were actually strange as hell. And I mean, yeah, maybe if there's more videos out there, or if there's individual videos out there on some of these towns, I'll be down to see them. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this reaction. Have you ever been to one of these towns? Are you from one of these towns? Because if you are, that would really interest me. Really, really interest me, like, what your perspective of the town is. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.